Hey, look out. It's Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
What a pleasure to talk to this gentleman, Archbishop Foley Beach, who has a show on our sister station, AM 920, The Answer. You can hear that show Monday through Friday, or actually Sunday morning, not Monday through Friday. Hey, maybe you should be on Monday through Friday.
We'd like that.
Yeah.
It's Sunday mornings at 8:30. It is called A Word from the Lord. Archbishop, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hope you're doing well today.
We are doing very well. We love your show, and I was on your website. I mentioned this before we went live. I love that you've taken advantage of technology, and that you're answering questions from folks and putting the video there on your website. And I love that. How often do you do that?
We try to do them about once a month. With my schedule, sometimes it's really difficult to do that. But people send us questions. We try to answer them from a biblical perspective, and the Lord seems to honor that.
I mean, this is a question. The latest one is about Jesus's resurrection, and I thought, that's a great question. What an answer! Have you ever had a question where you're like, "I'll get back to you"?
Yeah, I don't answer those. No, there are actually some. I don't claim to be a know-it-all, so I will often go ask people if I don't know the answer or do some research.
Yeah, great. I love that you're doing that. Thank you very much for doing that. All right, a word from the Lord. How long have you been doing this program?
We have been on the air. Let's see, my goodness, since 2000. Since 2002. So about 18 years. And we started on a little country station out in Monroe, Georgia, doing a weekly broadcast of sermons, and then it began to expand after that. And then once the internet took off, we began to broadcast through the internet as well. We started with a typical 25-minute program, which is what's on the sister station. But after a while, some folks wanted some 1-minute spots for their radio stations. And so we started doing these little 1-minute things. And next thing you know, people really were liking them. So we send them out via email. And then now we do actually a daily 1-minute devotional from those. And people seem to really be ministered to by it, which is what it's all about.
Now, the 1 minute, a word from the Lord, where does the content come from? Do you just wait and God just showers it on you and says, talk about this, or where does it come from?
Big secret here. I have an incredible producer who hears my sermons, and those little clips are out of sermons or teachings. And somehow he is able to weave those into coherent 1-minute messages.
That's a good editor right there. If you can get it from a full sermon down to 1 minute, that's awesome.
He's really good.
We're talking with Archbishop Foley Beach, and his show is A Word from the Lord. I've got to tell you, not just because you're in front of me, but I love your style. I mean, it's not a hype style. It's not a stuffy style. It's just, hey, we're just chatting. And as I mentioned the video earlier, I was just sitting there and I'm thinking, wow, I mean, if I were an archbishop, I would be stuffy. But I just love your presentation, and no doubt that people wanted to hear more in the little 1-minute clips. What have you heard people say about the show over the years since you've been doing it for so long? And yeah, wow, 2002 you started, and now on the internet. And how did you fare during COVID? I guess we're still in it. How have you been doing?
Well, first, thanks for that encouragement. I just really try to be myself, and being from Atlanta, it's can be down home sometimes. But as far as COVID, that has really been a challenge. In my role as Archbishop, I literally travel all over the world, interface with Anglican leaders and do ministry. Actually, my last airplane flight until this past weekend was six months ago.
Wow.
And I'd come in from Egypt, doing ministry in Egypt and Sudan and Kenya and Uganda. And so I got in just in time. Things were shut down. And so I thought I was going to have all this time to kind of rest because travel was shut down. But in my role as Archbishop, which means I'm over the Anglican Church in North America, and we have about 50 bishops that I'm basically their pastor to. So trying to help guide and help folks understand and determine what are we going to do? Shut down our churches? How do we do this? And then also in the local area, I'm the bishop of the Diocese of the South, which means I have about 50 churches that I'm over. And so trying to help each of those determine what's appropriate in their area. Do they keep church open? Do they close? How do you pastor your flock in the midst of this? It's been an amazing challenge. So I would work. I mean, I'd go to bed exhausted every night. And now folks are wrestling with all the questions about reopening or regathering. We never closed the church, but regathering and how to do that. And different jurisdictions, depending on what state folks are in, are allowed to do certain things. So in the midst of that, most of our churches went to online. If they hadn't already had an online presence, they went to online services. And that has been huge, not only to bring them into the technological world, but to be able to reach people, not just in their local community, but around the world. So I've been long-winded with the answer here. I hope I answered what you asked.
No, it's a great answer.
You did, and being a pastor, you said you're a pastor to the pastors, basically. What kind of issues did pastors need to talk through with this whole thing? Was it anxiety? Was it fear? Was it boredom? What was it?
Well, early on, it was like, what are we dealing with? Because nobody really knew, and people are dying, and of course the early projections were 2 million dead in the U.S. and that sort of thing, and everything was shutting down. So one of the roles of a shepherd is we tend to think of a shepherd is the role is to feed the flock, teaching, you teach, but if you study the life of a shepherd, one of the roles of a shepherd is to protect the sheep. To keep the sheep safe as much as possible. And so trying to make these kind of decisions, do we stop having worship? Do we not? Do we go visit our people? I mean, in our tradition, we have Holy Communion as part of our regular worship. How do you do that? Can you do that?
Right.
So it's those kind of things. And now what we're facing, and I think this is across the board with all pastors, is people are exhausted. People are weary. People are isolated. So many people in ministry are in ministry because they like being around people and they care for people. And when you can't be with people, it's been really tough on a lot of the pastors. So those are some of the things that we dealt with.
Okay.
If I may ask, how did you figure out the communion problem? Because that would be a major issue, right?
Yes, we've been very creative. We went to, first of all, one kind only to begin with, which was just the wafer. And we would pre-consecrate the way. Actually, different churches did it different ways. Some would broadcast the service online, and then you could have drive-through communion.
Oh wow!
So they'd come by the church afterwards. Others set out tables on the front steps of the church, and after the service, people would come and get a baggie, so everything was sanitized. And then it evolved to where people would actually could pick up ahead of time the wafers and follow along in the service, and then when it was appropriate time to take communion, and they would have communion.
Right.
So a variety of different ways. Very fascinating.
I love the innovation, right? I mean, obviously people are committed, they are connected to Christ, and they want to take communion. So they figured out, the leaders figured out, whomever decided, I mean, the baggies beforehand, afterward, it's amazing.
It has been, I've been very proud of our leaders, the innovation, the creativity with all kind of things. And they didn't act in fear. They were really trying to do great things. One of the things that, and this for a lot of your listeners may sound kind of weird, but we have communion in both kinds. We have bread and wine. Well, we've now started allowing, with safe practices of people to partake of the wine. Well, one of our churches, used an eyedropper and put one drop of wine in the middle of the wafer. Wow. And would distribute it that way. And, and that image, that picture is powerful. And really, when you think about what Christ did on the cross, and anyway, it's just, so some of the creativity and innovation has really been refreshing.
And what has God taught you personally during this time? obviously during COVID, most of us have had time to be at home and reflect and hopefully hear from the Lord. What has God taught you during this time?
I got stuck in First Chronicles chapter. Goodness, let me pull my Bible out here. Well, I'll just tell you while I'm looking it up.
Okay.
This the story of Hezekiah, and Hezekiah was faced with this huge challenge because it's Second Chronicles chapter 20. He found out all these armies were coming against him, and so he calls on he begins to seek the Lord. He calls the people together, and he begins to pray. And Second Chronicles chapter 20, verse 12 says this: "We are powerless against this great horde that is coming against us. We do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you." And that's exactly how I felt. I felt powerless against all this stuff coming against me. Lord, I don't know what to do, but my eyes are on you. And that's where I was stuck for a long, long time. And then he took me also to, especially with a lot of the civil unrest that we've been facing, he took me to obviously Second Chronicles 7:14, which, excuse me, which we've heard, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray. We've heard that, but most of the time we don't think about what that's in response to. And the Lord is answering a prayer of King Solomon. And in 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 37 to 40, we have a parallel passage to that of the prayer that actually he prayed. And one of the things he prays there is, Lord, when your people who are facing these things, and one of the things he lists is pestilence, call upon you, and they realize about the affliction in their own heart. And the word there is pestilence. It's the same word. It's a disease.
Wow.
And then Solomon's prayers that they would then hear from heaven, and the Lord would hear from heaven and answer the prayer. And then he gives this answer: if my people are called by my name. So where I got stuck was, Lord, show me the affliction, show me the disease, show me what's in my own heart that needs to be healed.
Wow.
Show me what needs to be changed. And so I stayed there for a long time, and I still am. Lord, show me what's really inside me. And it's been quite revealing. Wow. So that's some of the things that I've been dealing with during all this time.
That is so good. I love that. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to take the credit. Is that okay?
That's fine. It's fine. I can't take the whole credit. I remember my friend Michael Youssef one time saying you can't take credit for any of it because it's all rediscovery. We're borrowing everybody else's stuff, and the scriptures, it's right from the scriptures, and I'm borrowing from Hezekiah.
Love it. We got to take a break. Archbishop Foley Beach, hear the show on our sister station, AM 920, The Answer, Sunday mornings at 8:30. Where can they follow you on Facebook, on your website? Where can they go?
You can follow me in several different places. For the radio ministry, it's awordfromthelord.org. If you want to know more about the Archbishop role, it's Archbishop Foley Beach on Facebook. That's probably the best thing. That's usually where I try to keep updated what's going on with me and what I'm doing, what the ministries. If I have something to say, I usually post it there as well.
We love what you're doing. We'd love to catch up with you maybe every 6 weeks, every couple of months. And just, I know you'll probably pick up traveling pretty soon, but we would love to get back with you and
be glad to.
Yeah, find out what's going on. Hey, we got to take a break. Check out the show. And this show, we got to go. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.